Some brand new games, some new additions to older games, whatever you're in the market for, we've got it for you here on this roundup of new announcements.
First off, Ticket to Ride has Ticket to Ride Amsterdam. This is supposed to be a smaller version of Ticket to Ride that is only played for 10 to 15 minutes. It takes place in 17th century Amsterdam, where, like Ticket to Ride, you'll be trying to fill tickets and build paths, but you'll also be working with merchants to try to deliver goods. Then Small World actually has something we've heard about before and talked a little bit about, but we now have the official title for the Small World Warcraft crossover, which is Small World of Warcraft. This is going to be a core set that can fit 2 to 5 players. And of course, based on the world of Azeroth, it'll actually use some mechanics from Small World expansions. I believe it's the Small World Underground, which includes legendary artifacts and locations, but also introduce a new mechanic which involves traveling to different locations.
Free League Publishing has announced a new edition of their role-playing game, Twilight 2000. This game takes place in the wake of World War III in an alternate universe year 2000. You could play as either a soldier or a civilian. Maybe you're recovering from the war or trying to make the world a better place in its aftermath. The game is built around the setting of Poland, but there are also options to play in Sweden or anywhere else in the world if you'd like. This uses the Year Zero engine, which we've seen in, of course, Mutant Year Zero, and more recently Free League's Alien role-playing game, which is a system of D6s and the ability to push your rolls. But of course, there are going to be specific tweaks to gear this one more towards the world of Twilight 2000.
They have announced that they're releasing Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery. This is a new version of their old game that was actually based on the Starz TV show series. This new one will actually feature new art not based on the show. This, though, will keep the core mechanics of scheming, buying new gladiators and equipment, and then, of course, houses pitting their gladiators in the arena, with the houses trying to see who can gain the most influence to prove they are the best house in the game.
Another new edition of Monopoly is headed our way from Hasbro. It's Monopoly the Child, who you may know better as Baby Yoda from the Mandalorian series. This version of the game uses the same Monopoly rules as all of them pretty much do, but instead of being based around the Mandalorian as a whole, it's specifically tied to the child character as he is known in official canon. You'll be playing as different versions of Baby Yoda with different poses, perhaps eating a frog, and traveling around to different areas that he's explored in the show, areas from the ship, and so on.
Renegade Game Studios almost always has something new to announce, and this week is no exception. First off, we have Clank Adventuring Party. This expansion for the original Clank board game adds not only 5 to 6 players, but will also add unique decks for people to start off with. You will take on roles such as a dwarf warrior or a rogue, which has a unique basic deck setup as well as special abilities. We also have a new RPG based on the Altered Carbon Netflix show titled Altered Carbon, the role-playing game. In this, you will take on the role of characters who will use sleeves. Pretty much, you take over someone else's body, and should you die, you can pretty much jump to a new body. Your consciousness will be uploaded. If you haven't seen the show, this is a more dystopian cyberpunk world, and you'll be able to take on the role of like a savant or maybe someone higher up in the social class, maybe a soldier. But this takes advantage of that body hopping system, so you may die a lot more than you're used to in other RPGs.
We're not able to visit Disney parks at the moment, but Ravensburger is going to help us out with their adaptation of the Jungle Cruise ride, the Jungle Cruise Adventure game. This is an adaptation of that ride in which you'll be taking a crew on a dangerous jungle cruise. You have to get some passengers as well as some cargo to your destination safely, while also trying to figure out which family the company is planning on promoting. And if you can do that and choose which cargo is the most valuable by the time you get to the end before everybody else, you will win the game. And of course, it wouldn't be a complete Jungle Cruise experience without joke cards that you can read out loud to each other, including the infamous Backside of Water. This is a really interesting one that I caught my eye. As far as I know, other than I think maybe there's some bad board games in Disney parks, like there's a Tower of Terror Monopoly or something. This is the first board game really based on a theme park ride, and I think there's lots of potential for cool games in that genre.
I don't know if I 100% agree with that. It seems a little weird, but I love the idea if they did, though, where you could visit the entire park just on a board game table. Like, I don't mean a park board game. I mean, there's a separate board game for each ride. So you have to like argue like, do you want to do soaring? That's like a 2-hour play. Oh, like
that could be good too. Hey, if they could make a Pirates of the Caribbean movie good, I see no reason. I would play a Splash Mountain game or whatever.
That one has to though actually be like the pie face game. You like to get splashed actually somehow.
Yeah, it's one of those like toy games.
What's also really nice though about this Disney Jungle Cruise is that Weird Al has already been kind enough to provide a theme song.
yeah, really convenient. More board games need those theme songs too. The Renegade stuff you talked about, I think, sounds pretty cool. I think neither of us are familiar with the source material of Altered Carbon.
I know someone I used to talk to used to rave about the show. I've not watched it. I don't know. It just didn't really catch me from the description. Maybe if I watch it, I would think otherwise. But I guess I'm very curious to see how it stands up because it's, in general, like I said, it is the cyberpunk dystopian futurish. And, that is not an area that is wanting in RPGs.
That is true. The idea of, transferring your consciousness does sound like it could make it pretty unique. And the Clank expansion I was reading about, it also adds in, they were saying they were worried about having more players that the game would drag. And it adds some new cards in specifically that are things like, when it's not your turn, you may have a reaction you can play, or there might be cards that will, like, the whole group, each person gets to make a choice. So like they try to involve people more.
Yeah, I'm definitely more excited about that because adding the 5 to 6 usually I think is interesting. The personal decks I think is a cool idea. Like you start off differently, so you each feel like you have a strategy to go for. And what you just said really could help those awkward sort of times when you're waiting for your turn to come back around.
Yeah. Anything else jump out at you from this week?
I am curious. This is more of a general discussion, and that's the Monopoly game. Like usually, we get it. It's a Monopoly skin. But, The Mandalorian, I think as a show itself, I enjoyed a lot. I think you watched it. I can't remember at this point. I'm sort of losing
discussed it, yeah.
It's so weird for me from a board game. Like a toy, I get it. With the child, but it's almost just like, look at this cool character we created, all the cast, and it's like, yeah, but then there's the child.
He's what people like. He's the meme. That's what's gonna sell.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're just like so mad they can't write Baby Yoda on these packages.
Yeah,
they're so strict about that. That one is just so. It is very strange that like you could have had the same marketing push and just called it The Mandalorian, but it's just so weird that you can only play as multiple Baby Yodas.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not a Mandalorian version. It's the child version.
I agree. It's strange. It's highly unusual.
But I mean, I assume they did the testing and stuff. I just find it very hilarious to see. The Days of Wonder stuff, I'm curious what that Amsterdam version is. Because I mean, is it in the same market for the New York and London versions, or it's just this small box?
It sounded to me like it was just exactly another one of those. That's the impression I got.
Yeah, so I'm curious how well those are, because none of them seem like, are they worth having? I guess if you're a collector,
Yeah.
The World of Warcraft one sounds a little cooler. I couldn't find if it's allowed to mix with the other versions, which I would like.
I would imagine that it would.
I don't know if you know this, but I know one of the expansions actually had Borderland Tribe. Is that the word tribe for Small World?
Faction. Yeah, tribe maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah,
that you can use those. So I think if it can mix with the others, that would be really great. Because I would love the idea of just being able to have all the different groups and like, yeah, guess what? We're throwing in Tauren because why not?
Yeah, it seems like I would bet that you probably can. I think that would be a lot of fun. I'm glad they took the easy route and just named it Small World of Warcraft. That's the perfect title.
Why not? Why change a good thing?
Why change it? Spartacus is the other. It's really one that stands out to me this week, as it's a game that has been on our shelves for a long time. We've never got the chance to play it. Always heard really great things about it. Never watched the show. And I can see where they're coming from with this and in rebranding it to not be associated with the show. Not because that show was bad. I haven't watched it, but just because I don't think anyone really talks about it anymore. And, you know, this seems like it will make it a little more evergreen and people can approach it and not feel like, oh, will I be lost if I haven't seen this show I've never heard of?
Let's actually, we have a lot of things like shows and products to be based on. I think what's interesting about them is like this. First of all, Spartacus, I think it makes sense for them to do new art for that. As for the other products, you know, the ride, I think that's just going to be something that's going to be in the Disney parks, assuming they open up.
Well, I'll tell you this. It's the designer of it is the same designer who brought us Villainous. So, you know, I think they have some experience with taking a Disney property, a casual family game, and maybe making it a little bit, you know, I'm sure it's not going to blow us away, but I bet it'll be cute and like decent. It could go even as far as something like Jaws or Horrified, you know, like it could reach those heights that Ravensburger, they seem to be hitting those marks lately.
And as for Altered Carbon, it is a Netflix show that I assume is popular enough it's received multiple seasons, but one of the nice things is as the RPG, even if it becomes a niche thing, you could just sell a digital PDF version, which is a lot easier on the company compared to a board game.
Sure.
And Monopoly is Monopoly. You know, they don't care. They're like, sure, we'll print 100 copies or whatever, 100 million probably. I don't know their numbers, but it'll probably sell. And if it doesn't, whatever. They'll end up. Monopoly tends to be the kind of thing where they just throw as much as they can against the wall and see what sticks. I'd love to know other people's thoughts on all these products. Do you think they're smart for them to make them? If not, is there a big enough market for some of these shows, or does it need to be something like Spartacus where you can just sort of jump to just generalized art instead of actual scenes from the TV show or movie? You know, let us know in those comments down below.
Yeah, talk to us. Which games are you most looking forward to when they come out, RPG, board game, or otherwise? Until next time, my name is Jonathan.
My name is Will.
And this has been Roll for Crit.
If you love board game content, do us a favor, like and subscribe, and support us on Patreon.
Keep watching our content to guarantee you'll top deck a good video.